In this video, let's look at the final Chiefs and Seahawks injury report, talk about the Chiefs Pro Bowl selections and who else maybe should have made it, then visit the Twitter exchanges between defensive tackle Khalen Saunders and Chiefs Twitter, and try to answer the question if engagements like this are even ever worth it. But first, how about those? What's up and Merry almost freaking Christmas. My name is Cole and I do daily news about the Kansas City Chiefs, so make sure to sub if you're new, slap that like button if you are feeling good about this Chiefs win over the Seahawks on Saturday. And let's get into this video starting with an injury report. Chiefs versus Seahawks, it's the final one. Some of the notable takeaways from the Chiefs side first. Kadarius Toney was a full participant all week and should see an uptick in his snap count, I would presume. Jody Fortson has been ruled out with an elbow injury, and honestly, we may not see him back for a while. Chris Jones had his second full practice this week after recovering from the illness that's going around the D-line room, so while that is good news, defensive tackle Khalen Saunders is listed as doubtful due to that illness, and both Mike Dana and safety Deon Bush are listed as questionable due to the illness. I think it would be the same one as well. So the sickness continues to spread. They are not down with the sickness like Disturbed. What am I saying? I don't know, but let's just hope it finishes up before the postseason because we need all these guys healthy. In other player news, Coach Reid said today that he feels pretty good about Blake Bell returning for Saturday's game, which is a bit surprising to me, but if that is the case, we will see him come off of IR officially after being injured all season long, and then he will need to take somebody else's roster spot. If Jody Fortson's elbow injury is bad enough, we could see him placed on IR and then Blake Bell take his spot, but let's hold the horses on that and see what happens because there's other players that could come off of this roster before Fortson if they don't think he needs to be put on IR. And then someone that we thought would be coming off of IR for this weekend's game rather than Blake Bell is going to be wide receiver Mecole Hardman. However, when asked about him today, Coach Reid said, quote, "I'm not sure he's where he needs to be. We have him in a very limited role at the moment, and I'll need to check in with him and also with Rick." So yeah, it's looking unlikely for Mecole at the moment, who is working at it to regain his weight. He is getting better, but coach is going off of how Mecole feels, and therefore it doesn't look like Mecole is quite ready for a return, which is a bit of a bummer, but ultimately that man just needs to get right and get healthy for the postseason run. A healthy Mecole and a healthy Kadarius Toney is an absolute must. As for the Seahawks and their injury report, it looks like they ruled out wide receiver Tyler Lockett because of the surgery he just had on his hand. Not a surprise. Safety Ryan Neal, knee, and defensive tackle Al Woods' Achilles have both been ruled out for this game as well on Saturday, and it looks like safety Ryan Neal is a significant one given he was looking to be the matchup for Travis Kelce on the other side of the ball. Their options to replace Neal are going to be the former Raider Jonathan Abram, who isn't known for his coverage, and Teez Tabor, who has more experience with the defense, and who knows, they might pair him up with somebody else in their secondary other than those two guys, but those are just some other options. And the fact that Lockett is out is a big loss for the Seahawks, as Lockett is actually their number one receiver in total yards and touchdowns, not DK Metcalf. Now, to be clear, it's basically a close 1-2 punch, okay, between the both of them, but it was still interesting to see as I was looking at the stats. Lockett has 964 yards and 8 touchdowns on the season. DK Metcalf is right behind him, though, at 924 total yards and 6 TDs, but again, the Seahawks will be without Lockett in this game, which is a big loss. As far as those listed as questionable, there were 4 running backs: Ken Walker III and DJ Dallas, tight end Noah Fant, and wide receiver Marquise Goodwin. Ken Walker III currently leads the team in rushing yards with 696. Meanwhile, tight end Noah Fant is the third most productive receiver on the team outside of only Lockett and Metcalf themselves. And while those players would be a huge loss to the team if they didn't play, Pete Carroll did say recently in a presser today that all 4 of the players listed as questionable are expected to play. So here we go. Got to bring it. All right, enough of the injuries. From here, I wanted to cover a couple of cool announcements. First, it looks like the drum honoree for the team's Inspire Change game against the Seahawks on Christmas Eve is going to be the voice of the Chiefs himself, Mitch Holthus. This man has been a legend of Chiefs Kingdom in Chiefs Kingdom for nearly 3 decades, and I couldn't think of a better person to open things up on Saturday. Next up, the Chiefs have 7 members that have been voted to represent the team in this year's Pro Bowl games. And in case you're wondering, Pro Bowlers are selected based on votes from fans, players, and coaches. Each group's vote counts for 1/3 of the overall vote, according to the NFL. And with that being said, here are the Chiefs players that got voted in. 3 are on the O-line. You have center Creed Humphrey, left guard Joe Thuney, and left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. Then you had punter Tommy Townsend, who was also recently voted as the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week in the midst of the Dustin Colquitt criticism. Next up is tight end Travis Kelce, QB1 Patrick Mahomes, and the CEO of Sack Nation himself, Chris Jones. And for what it's worth, Kelce, Humphrey, Jones, Mahomes, and Townsend, they're considered starters, which means Thuney and Orlando are considered backups. It also looks like the Chiefs have the second most players of any team, tied with the Cowboys at 7, and only the Eagles have more players going to the Pro Bowl with 8. Now, here's my thoughts. If you said, Cole, 7 players from the Chiefs got voted into the Pro Bowl, who are they? Well, I'd say Tommy Townsend for their special teams player. He's earned it. Great punter. Then for the other 6, I'd go with Kelce, duh, Mahomes, duh, and either Creed or Joe Thuney. And then on the defense, I'd go with Chris Jones and either Nick Bolton or L'Jarius Sneed. I definitely did not expect to see left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. on there. If you look at the O-line's current overall grades, it goes Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney, Trey Smith, then Orlando, and finally Andrew Wiley. That is an overall grade. Orlando is 4th out of 5 on the O-line. If you look at the line by run blocking grades, it goes Creed, Trey Smith, Orlando, Thuney, Wiley. And for pass blocking grades, Thuney, Creed, Orlando, Trey Smith, Wiley. As far as pressures allowed, it goes Andrew Wiley and Orlando tied at 43, Trey Smith at 28, then Joe Thuney and Creed Humphrey all the way down at 15. So while I am happy for Orlando, I would think that Nick Bolton or L'Jarius Sneed would be more deserving from a statistical impact standpoint on the team. Yet congrats to them all, and I realize it was voted on by players, coaches, and fans. So hey, it is what it is. Those are the guys going, so let's freaking go. And from here, we got to talk a bit about the defense and a player on the defense who was recently going borderline wild on Twitter during one of his sick days, and that player is defensive tackle Khalen Saunders, who again is sick and doubtful to play in this game Saturday. Well, on one of those sick days earlier this week, for whatever reason, he decided to take to Twitter to go on a rant of sorts in defense of the Chiefs' defense, in defense of the defense. Nice ring. And then he proceeded to seemingly endlessly argue with the fans. And I'm not going to cover every tweet because that is way too much, but I want to give an overview, evaluate some of his thoughts from a statistical standpoint, and then conclude if the time spent on Twitter was overall a fruitful experience for both him and those in the comment section. All right, it all started out when Saunders tweeted out, "Someone, don't all speak up at once because there are certainly a lot of you folks out there. Please explain to me the whole, quote, Chiefs have no pass rush narrative. Please, it's very confusing to me in my jock football brain, so pardon me, but 4th overall with 42 sacks seems decent, right? Oh, and 16th in terms of rushing yards a game, 3 solid weeks to finish out the year, and that could be top 10 as well. I hate group thinkers." I don't even know what a group thinker is, to be honest. Maybe I am not smart. Could be the case, but either way, he is not wrong in these tweets, though. I think the style, the approach of said tweets are basically inviting smoke in the comment section with the way he went about him. The Chiefs are indeed 4th best in the league with 42 sacks total. Pretty impressive for the team considering last year they ended the season with only 31 sacks. So they already have 11 more on the season with 3 more games to play than they did last season. And this year, 14 of those sacks come from those who aren't on the D-line. You have Sneed with 4, Willie Gay Jr. 3, Bolton 2, Darius Harris 2, Leo Chanel 1, Brian Cook 1, Thornhill 1. So that leaves the D-line getting a total of 28 sacks so far this season. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not really sure. I don't know a quick and easy way to look up total sacks by each team only coming from the D-line, but I'd say they're doing a decent job overall at it at least. However, I think the critique at times is the Chiefs' D-line is unable to get home when it matters in key situations when only rushing 4. I realize, though, that just last week, the defense got home with 4 thanks to Chris Jones flushing Mills out of the pocket while being double-teamed, and then Frank Clark getting up on a second effort and slapping the ball out of Davis Mills' hands in overtime against the Texans, but you'd ideally like to see them be able to get home more often without blitz help. They are about average in pass rush win rate, which is a good indicator of how often the Chiefs defense is able to win their reps. So they are 14th overall with a 42% pass rush win rate. Say that 5 times fast. The Eagles and Cowboys are tied for the first most at 53% for context. But yes, to Khalen Saunders' credit, they are the 4th best team in total sacks. Sadly, though, they only sacked Burrow once, Josh Allen once, Tom Brady once. I know they won that game. And then just last week, only sacked one of the Texans' 2 QBs one freaking time. So yeah, they've sacked other QBs multiple times, like statue in the pocket Russell Wilson or Matt Ryan, for example. But in the close down to the wire games, the Chiefs D-line has to get home a bit more to help out the already struggling secondary. And I don't know the stats on it. It's hard to look up, but it just hasn't happened as much as we would have liked it to. And as far as the Chiefs' run defense is concerned, since Saunders did mention it, they are the 5th best overall in yards allowed, 4th best in rushing TDs allowed, and 13th in yards per attempt allowed. So pretty good. Definite bright spot. But part of me wonders if the reason they're doing well in some of these run defense categories is because teams know that they can pass on the Chiefs at will, basically being able to do as they please with the Chiefs secondary and linebackers as well at times in the passing game. And it could also be the reason why teams run the ball the 5th lowest total against the Chiefs of any other team in the NFL total, because the Chiefs' pass defense has definitely struggled this season. They're 22nd in yards allowed, 32nd in touchdowns allowed with 30, 24th in interceptions, they only have 8, and 10th in net yards per attempt. And overall, the defense is 19th in allowed points, 14th in yards allowed, 16th in first downs allowed, but dead last in red zone TDs allowed. And then Chiefs allow a touchdown or first down at a rate of 73% per drive, which is 24th in the league. There you go. Lots of pretty stats. So now that we have some groundwork laid out, here's where Saunders just, kind of keeps going. He responded to someone who called him soft, saying, "I genuinely never understood the whole 'I'm a diehard Chiefs fan, but let me talk ish to men I rely on to win games' viewpoint. It's really nasty work, must be exhausting." He then continued in another tweet, not to anybody, just in general on Twitter, "Nah, but for real, what's y'all's beef with athletes being on Twitter? LOL, I'm starting to see why LeBron was going so hard with the whole shut up and dribble thing. All of this isn't directed at the whole kingdom. That's where y'all got it confused. I'll never forget when I got drafted and they panned the camera to that guy pounding a beer and damn near crying. It's the fact that no matter what, a large percent of y'all will never be satisfied." All right, let's pause for station identification. Just kidding, but let's pause here. My simple counter to that part is, no, this is not the large percentage. This is the vocal minority on Twitter. Chiefs Twitter is a minority, I promise you, and Twitter is also a cesspool filled with lots of trolls who make accounts with no real info, no real name, a fake photo, and talk trash behind their phones and keyboards at an extra high level because they lack self-esteem, they lack a motivation to be a productive member of society, and they typically have very small you-know-whats. Therefore, I would not take too serious what people on Chiefs Twitter are saying. Either way, he then continues saying this: "Y'all want us to get on here and interact and show y'all that we are real and genuine people. Then we do that and y'all be like, stay your off Twitter. As a pro athlete, why are you on here?" Another tweet then said, "But it's all love, Chiefs Kingdom. I'll be out your hair soon. Don't even trip. Love you guys." And I don't know, dude. To me, this is a weird tweet. "I'll be out your hair soon." I don't even freaking have hair, bro. But seriously, is he about to be losing snaps? Is that what he means by that to somebody else like, Brandon Williams? Or is he talking about next offseason with him being on a contract year and more than likely not returning to the Chiefs? For whatever reason, this man seems to really care about what a small percentage of fans on Twitter think, and I do not really understand why. I think Khalen has been playing pretty well. To be honest, he's graded out better overall than Noddy, Stallworth, and Wharton. Has more pressures, 12, and sacks, 3, with Noddy, Stallworth, Wharton, and Brandon Williams combined. I know Stallworth isn't here, but I threw his name in the hat anyway. So I do think he's playing well, but the getting online to argue with fans thing isn't really going to solve much. His last tweet on the subject sums up why his attempts were ultimately futile, and more than likely a complete waste of his time and everybody else's in the comments. He says, "Last thing I'll say, I don't address the positive Chiefs Kingdom on here because I embrace y'all every Sunday. Y'all know I love ya. I'm addressing the ones that tear down everything that isn't number 15, yet want us to win every week. I'm trying to get those bad few apples to be more like y'all. But bro, It's Twitter. As I explained prior, you aren't going to be able to change the views of those bad apples. Most of them are absolute dillweeds. Many of them self-esteemless, just made that word up, trolls to begin with, and want nothing more than to argue like children in the comment section. Now, not everybody's like that on Chiefs Twitter. I saw a lot of positive, encouraging comments like K-Love. I also saw some comments just offering legit critiques. Then, of course, the dumb trolls. I think the opposite approach, to be honest, is going to be more effective here from an athlete like that. Embrace the positive Chiefs Kingdom comments, thank them, interact with the genuine questions, even those offering like legit critique or have serious questions, interact with them, but leave the idiots to themselves because, I don't know, they're not going to get any smarter, they're not going to get any better, and they're not going to contribute to society. Or how about this one? Maybe Khalen Saunders should take the approach of the leader of the defensive line, Chris Jones, the legend himself, who gave some honest thoughts when asked about the Saunders Twitter madness today during his presser.
Stay off of Twitter, bro. Forget it. Because at the end of the day, I understand where you're coming from, but in this league, man, everybody's not going to like you. That's how social media is these days, man. A lot of us have platforms and those gigs that we get on and we interact with fans, and sometimes it can turn ugly. For me personally, I just stay off of social media, especially during this time, especially engaging with fans that either dislike you or dislike you for a play you did this year, or they'll live with it. We'll pick it up next game. We could talk about it later.
Well, there you go. It's probably for the best just to stay off Twitter, but if you must be on there, don't feed the trolls and negative comments because there's literally no point. And with all that being said, you got to let me know your views, your thoughts on all of this. Was Saunders out of line? Or maybe he wasn't out of line, but his time would have been better spent interacting with some of the positive, supportive comments instead, or just answering those who were legitimately asking questions or trying to offer critique. Let me know your thoughts on all this down below. I don't know. I thought it would end a little bit with Tyrann Mathieu gone, but it's still going. It lives on. But again, let me know your thoughts on all this. And until next time, let's go. Merry freaking Christmas. How about those?